okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna connect the audio too, just so they can hear you from there clearly, because you're close,
Oh, okay, okay,
and
okay.
then also like me here. Um, but I wanted to do like a series of like getting folks from Oceanside to just tell their history because I believe oral communication is very important, right? I feel like there's a lot of people from the outside that want to tell like the experiences of everyday people here that have found themselves in community Oceanside or who are born and raised here, but validating that we write our own history and we have that privilege and that power to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can take that away from us. So hopefully this could like inspire somebody or like provide perspective that's very much needed for us that
Mm-hmm.
are here from Oceanside, that are from community. So if you want to say your name, pronouns, um, and
Do you want me to look at the camera or
no,
should
no,
you?
it's fine. However,
Okay.
you look at me. Names and pronouns. Start off.
Okay. Juanito, xochipilli, conoro. Pronouns are they, them, theirs.
Okay. And could you tell me a little bit about yourself and you know, just a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, roots, family, and like what neighborhood you grew up in?
Yes. So it's a little bit about myself. I think sometimes it um I feel like I'm a complex person, but I'm also the simplest person ever. So um I'm a queer non-binary person who grew up on in Oceanside on Payam Cachuam land. I'm also a displaced indigenous person from Huachichil territory, which is now known as San Ciro da Costa, San Luis Potosi. I grew up in Oceanside in Center Street. And the reason I say Center Street was because the a few decades ago, maybe a few years ago, that neighborhood of Center Street was renamed to Crown Heights, and I think it was renamed to Crown Heights because it was more digestible to the gentrifiers, to be honest. So I grew up in Center Street, and I say Center Street intentionally. Um, I grew up in Oceanside in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. Um, could you just talk like briefly about your experiences growing up here in Oceanside, like how it was like, and Center Street, how the culture was,
Hmm.
how people would interact with one another? Can you like give me that, like, you know,
Yeah.
those
Entonces,
experiences?
entonces, growing up in Oceanside and Center Street, I think I just need to provide a little context. I was born in San Diego, California. When I was younger, the story of a lot of people who migrate. And I say people who migrate, not my immigrants, because I'm not an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
This is my land. But people who migrate and they have children here and they have to work. We were sent, along with my siblings, and cousins, we were sent back to Mexico to stay with my grandmother in San Luis Potosí. When I was around 5 years old, 6 years old, I remember coming back to Solana Beach, and I lived in La Colonia. A lot of people know Eden Gardens, Solana Beach, La Colonia. It was also a very heavy Mexican populated community. I remember being there for about a year. Y luego, a year later, after I got here to the States, we moved to Oceanside. And in Oceanside, we grew up on a street called Ditmar. And so I grew up on a little house called Ditmar. That was the first like interaction that I had with this area. And even though we were a few blocks away from Center Street, we went to Ditmar Elementary back then. And Ditmar Elementary at that point, it was like 90%, 90%, 95%, quote unquote Hispanic. Basically, a lot of Mexicanos. And so a lot of my friends that went to Ditmar Elementary actually lived in Center Street. And so when we got the opportunity to go live in Center Street, because the house that we were living in was being sold. We moved on Missouri in Center Street, and I already knew a lot of the people there because of the students that I went to school with. And being in Center Street is the one of the things as a kid. One of the things that I remember is the a lot of people from Oaxaca, like very Oaxaca based community. I remember este que in retrospect now, right? It's that I see it was a lot of indigenous people from Oaxaca. At that point, I didn't understand that, but the reason I say indigenous because I remember there was people who spoke one, two, or three languages, and there was a variation of that. There's people who spoke like their native tongue, like it could be an indigenous language.
Dialect.
I don't know dialect
Mm.
because I don't know where dialect comes from.
Mm.
So like I just challenge that because I don't know if it's a dialect. I think it's a language.
Mm.
And I think a lot of times like anthropologists, especially white anthropologists, like to say dialect, but it's not a dialect to the people who have this language.
Yeah.
It's their language. So that's why I don't go with.
Damn, that term is usually thrown around a lot.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
but we never. I mean, a lot of
Question
times
it.
we never question it. Like we just kind of accept it. To indigenous people, it's not a dialect. To indigenous people, from my perspective, is their language.
Mm.
So they spoke three languages, which one their native language from the indigenous communities they were from or are from. Some of them spoke Spanish and some of them spoke English. There's people who spoke one language, two languages, and three languages. And I thought that was very interesting, but that's something I grew up with. And in growing up with that, that was very like natural for me to see. I remember having a lot of my friends who spoke their native language, indigenous native language, talking to their parents or grandparents. It was just very natural. And they were able to speak English, and then they were able to speak Spanish. So it was really interesting to see that. I remember being introduced to chilenas, chapulines, tlayudas, like the music, the culture, and I think also the togetherness. Like it seemed just like everybody knew each other. Everybody knew each other, and everybody was everybody's cousins, at least in Center Street. And I think it's like from this perspective now, it's like it's the migration aspect of it. Like how people migrate, and along with migration comes language, food, culture, and so many other things that a lot of people like to enjoy as well. Entonces, so I remember growing up it was fun. I don't know, I think it was fun. I think a lot of the kids played. And I remember myself as a kid, as we were growing older, things were shifting, obviously, coming into adolescency and going into middle school and high school. I think that's when I experienced and saw the impacts of quote unquote gang violence, because that's how it was presented to us as gang violence. And the barrios, the different barrios. Like me growing up in Center Street, I think I was very sheltered to that space and area. It took me many, many years to go to Pozole. Like even as an adult, even as, I think it was just an internalization of fear of the division that like was intentionally supposedly done, for us not to come together. But or anywhere I traveled, it was really kind of like I was anxious and a little bit scared because you would always get pulled up. But Center Street was safe for me, and so like growing up and seeing how the different social groups, I guess you could say that people call them gangs, interacted as well. When I was in 8th grade, it was in 1995 in 8th grade at Lincoln Middle School. I remember hearing that there was a riot at both Oceanside High School and El Camino, and I think it was a racial riot. Like what people were talking about it, the kids were talking about, and it would come back to us. It was like black people against Mexicans, and it was like always this like undertone is like the black against Mexicans, black against Mexicans. I remember being scared of going to Oceans High School because I'm like, what am I gonna do if there's a riot? Um, I don't know if it was a riot. I think that that's how it was portrayed and painted. I think that more than a riot, it was a altercation. It was a fight. It was something that I think I was used to seeing most of the time, especially at schools. And then in '96, I was a freshman at Oceans High School, and I think that while in Oceans High School, there's different labels. I think that people will imposed on different people. Growing up in Center Street, it was very indigenous and first generation folks that spoke mostly Spanish. And there was a label that was imposed on us. We were called the Paisas because of that environment, I guess. And we always subconsciously knew that people in Pozole were second generation, third generation. They had a lot of the people who lived in Pozole. They had older cousins who spoke English. Their parents spoke English, so it was really interesting. I remember thinking, I'm like, wow, like there's parents who speak English. It's like there people have older siblings. People have older cousins. Like I didn't know that because I was the first one here. I was the oldest cousin. And I was the first one to speak English. Like one of the first people to speak English in my family. Entonces, so like going into Oceans High School, I stuck with my people, with my gente, with my paisas, because we enjoy the same music. We love to dance. Música mexicana, regional mexicana. We like to go to quinceañeras. We like to do the same things, you know. Whereas I think the people on the east side in Pozole, they were really like into house music. House music was huge back then. House music, R&B, hip hop.
Keisha Cole.
Keisha Cole. Y luego también Chicano rap, you
Lil
know?
Rob.
Little Rob, yeah, Little Rob. Entonces, I remember I can see the distinction, right? Like even though we were like both Mexican and we had the same last names and same ancestry, quote unquote ancestry, right? Yeah, we were so different. A lot of times I think I felt bullied by um, the Chicano people that grew up here because of like where I came from, and like the indigeneity of it, and I think that that's what it was. Um, so I think that was growing up in Oceanside. I mean, per se, I think there was a lot of fun times. I still talk to a lot of the friends that I grew up with. I loved playing. I loved the neighborhood. I loved walking around it. I loved the music, just walking and, or like even walking and like saying hi to people. It reminded me a lot of my pueblo in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. How would you say it's been these past couple of years compared to when you were growing up?
It's not the same. It is not the same at all. I think that I want to validate the experience of the Oceanside that current people are living, that especially people who are marginalized and impacted, because I think it's important. I don't want to take away from the Oceanside that you grew up in, because that's your experience. Um, and I think it's nostalgic and maybe a little bit unfair to say that my Oceanside was better, because I'm not trying to say that. I think I'm just saying that when I grew up in Oceanside, it felt very community-like. And I don't see that in this moment much. And I think that it makes me sad sometimes not to see that this younger generation or the future generation is going to be able to experience community and what community feels like. I think that ever since the elections, this past election in 2025, 24, was it 25, 24?
2024.
2024 is that I can see where people are actually coming a little bit more together, and that gives me hope. And I hope that we continue to be able to do that, so that the younger generation can experience community. It's not going to be community how we experienced it in our pueblo. It's not going to be community how we experienced it back then, but it's going to be community how it's supposed to be experienced in this moment. And I think that that's a hope that I continue to have, that we're able to walk down the street and say hi to somebody we know. But I also know that there's different components that are potentially can affect that. Gentrification is the policies, immigration, like police. Like there's so many entities, policies, institutions that are in quote unquote positions of power that can have an effect on that. And I think that they have succeeded in the past years. I saw this interview, and I'm gonna say it anyways. I'm gonna say this interview that says that it's our culture is being taken away from Oceanside. I don't think that's true. I think our culture is our culture. Nobody's ever gonna take away my culture. I think the city of Oceanside and city of Oceanside officials are intentionally trying to damage our culture, infiltrating our culture through policies and resources that they have for us not to continue to be a community. You can never take away my culture. And I'm never going to let anybody take my culture. I'm not going to give up that easy. But I do see how gentrification, immigration, policing is to have an effect on the community and my culture.
Thank you. Yeah, because I would like to say too, I think realizing like what the culture of Oceanside really is, like where
Mhm.
does it come from?
Mhm.
Thinking about BIPOC, indigenous, femme, queer people
Yeah.
that have found themselves home in Oceanside. We're talking about the islander community, Philippine community, the Oaxacan community, not only from Mexico, from Guatemala, there's like a
Yeah.
lot of folks from there, black folks too.
Mhm.
Like, I think we're the fabric of the community, and um, I feel like the city of Oceanside and the powers that be are just displacing those people. And I think that maybe that's where that statement comes from, like, oh, the culture is being removed away. No, it's because you're removing away the people.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're moving it away through the different policies. There's currently, July 2026, there's a plática at the city hall in regards to new apartments being built. And I think that there is also some kind of effort to be like, hey, make sure you include us in this plan, meaning that people who aren't able to afford these rents are able to also get space for it. I always advocate for 100% of the affordable, quote unquote, affordable housing. And people laugh at me. People have laughed at me for wanting to think big. But it's intentional. I think our people deserve 100% affordability in this city that we have built. There was a time in Oceanside, nobody wanted to come to Oceanside. The only people who came to Oceanside were our family members, because they had loved ones here. And I remember as I was growing older and interacting with people outside of Oceanside, or if I was at a different city and I would tell people I was from Oceanside, they were like, oh, you're from Oceanside? Or like, oh, you're from Oceanside, isn't it ghetto? And like, I didn't have a capacity and range at that moment to really understand it, but there was always this like attack on the Oceanside, and because of crime, because of poverty, because of like the different things. So it was really interesting to see that, like, you didn't want us, like, and now you're here. Which makes me think is like, you just wanted the land, you just didn't want the people. And that's just perpetuating instead what colonial systems have done and what colonists have done. Like, They never want the people in the land. They always want the land.
Mm. Okay. Uh, question for you again. Sorry. How do you feel like? Um, how do you feel like folks from Oceanside? Because you touched about like the systems that be. Could you speak more about like in general like the history of Oceanside and how we're seeing like the effects of gentrification that isn't really new,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like even since like before I was born, my mom would tell me many stories, how she grew up in the blues, so was Azules, and how the systems that be like immigration enforcement, there will be operations like on a consistent basis to take gente out
Yeah.
of communities. So like it's not something new that we see, right? Especially like the policies of like lack of affordability. Like, can you speak a little bit more on that?
Yes, I think there's a lot of intersection in that. Growing up in Oceanside, there was two entities that I always felt were after me. At least that's what it felt like. Institutions, which is Border Patrol and the Oceanside Police Department. I remember getting pulled over by the Border Patrol, and like as a teen, because I think like I looked older, and ask them asking me my is the status, I guess you could say. And I remember I was confused, like why would they do that? And it was like something very normal to see and normal to interact as a brown person, because now that I see it, they were profiling me as a brown person and a brown man looking presenting person. I was being profiled constantly by Border Patrol. I remember, I know there's laws right now or policies, at least here in California, that Border Patrol and or ICE agents, I'm not sure about that, but I mean, I know Border Patrol isn't allowed to go on public transportation, but back then it was very common. I remember going on and seeing Border Patrol come on the bus here in Oceanside on NCTD. And I just remember the feeling, like the physical feeling of feeling fear as they were walking by, and you can, it's a very vivid memories that I have of it. But I remember for one reason, I remember is the Border Patrol got on the bus and the whole bus got quiet because a lot of the people who took public transportation was our gente. And I remember the Migra Border Patrol, he was just going like aisle by aisle, just asking people for their status, and everybody was quiet, and everybody just like didn't know how to interact with that. And that was me as a child, experiencing that. And then continuing that is like growing up older and then them physically stopping me and asking me for like if I belong here or not. With the Oceanside Police Department, oh my god, it was just constant. I think at first I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why I always kept. It was again internalized, that I thought it was just a normal thing for me to get stopped by Oceanside Police Department and get asked if I was a gang member, and it was constant. Like my brothers got pulled over. Like if I sit down and talk to my brothers, all of my brothers got pulled over by Oceanside Police Department and got to ask the same questions. All of my friends that are guys got pulled over. All of my cousins got pulled over. It was always the brown hombres who kept on getting pulled over. I think I somewhat lived the brown man boy experience here in Oceanside, and I have compassion and empathy for brown men who grew up in Oceanside at that time because I knew how it felt. And I say somewhat read it because I mean, as a queer non-binary person, I can never really fully experience what it means to be a brown man in Oceanside during that time. But my proximity to it, like I could understand the frustration of migra and the frustration of police. Um, and a different thing for me, like you're talking about growing up in Oceanside, was my own identity and queerness. I grew up in Oceanside and I went to St. Mary's, and I was really heavily involved in St. Mary's, and so it was a lot of talk about like religion or the faith system and queerness, and obviously they didn't go hand in hand. So that was a different component on top of everything that was going on. I learned how to hide in Oceanside. I learned how to navigate systems in order to survive, to be honest. Um, because there was a lot of systems that were against me in Oceanside. And so that transferred over in 2005 when I joined the military, when I was in the army. And when I talk about being in the army, it's not something that I talk about as a patriotic way. And I think it's important for me to say that because a lot of times people who talk about being in the military, there's a sense of a pride, a sense of patriotism, a sense of like status at times too. Is the society likes to do that, but I think I really want to be intentional. That like I say that I served in the military, and I'll get that into it in a little bit. So being in the military, I remember different instances where, because going back to Oceanside, growing up in Oceanside, seeing checkpoints too back in the days. I know there was checkpoints in the like mid 2000s, but there was also checkpoints like way back in the days. And I remember growing up in Oceanside and checkpoints, how they affected our gente, because a lot of times our gente didn't have driver's license or insurance, and Oceanside Police Department was complicit in family separation, by continuing to work alongside with Border Patrol. If somebody didn't speak English, they would then get, and we saw that later on too. In the mid 2000s, they would get Border Patrol to translate, in the midst of translating, that's when they saw that this person wasn't able to speak English, but also like they would cross that, like that line and ask them for more. So I was seeing that with checkpoints. Also knowing that our gente never went to Camp Pendleton. That's also important. Like we just knew not to go on Camp Pendleton or any gates. And again, so transferring that into my military, when I went into the military and I was in the army, I remember the physical reactions I would always have going onto base or onto post. And I remember thinking, I remember one time, like, my haircut had to be a certain way, obviously. It's the haircut, I had to be shaved. I was shaved. My haircut was on point. My uniform was on point. I had my ID card to get on. Back in the days, you could, on your vehicle, for being in the military, you had to get some stickers to get on. I had registration, insurance, and my car was registered. I had everything to go on and every quote unquote right to be on that post. But I remember just like shaking and feeling really uneasy. And I never explained why. And I think that it was that, I guess for lack of better words, some PTSD of what checkpoints meant and what checkpoints did and what militarization policing entities did. And I think that the reason I think I remember that moment, because I think that's when I realized that that's why I would always be shaking and scared to go on base or on post. Because there was always this undertone growing up here in Oceanside is like that you don't belong here, and so that transfers over to that. And I think that that's just my experience, but I think that a lot of people have experienced the same thing, that even if they were not in the military, like going on Camp Pendleton, like there's this sense like you don't belong here. like you have to have certain credentials to get on here. And then people are gonna understand it. Well, you want everybody, bitch. Like I don't want everybody to go there, but I'm just saying, like you are instilling a space for people to be excluded intentionally, based on certain statuses. And so, like growing up, like that was Oceanside. It transfers over, and I think like what happens now in this moment of time in 2026 is like with militarization of the Department of Homeland Security, the continued policing and the resources they're getting. And then even though the Oceanside Police Department loves to say they don't work with the federal agents, the continued work with federal agents and police department, it continues. Like these are power structures of power that are institutionalized, that continue to have an impact an unhealthy impact on our community and of separating our gente, and it's the psychological warfare that sometimes a lot of people don't realize or think that. And I think that was what you were asking, right? Because I know you said something about the blues, but I might have gone somewhere else.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna move this real quick just so we can hear you. Another question I want to ask is like I want to reel it a little bit back about yourself.
Mm.
How would you say it was like navigating your identity being here and from Oceanside? Because I also want to be very transparent too. A lot of the culture that we get here is a lot of machismo, misogyny, homophobia
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to gang culture too. Speaking from my experience growing up in Pozole, right, as a male identifying person, how would you say it was navigating who you are here?
I think that's a very interesting question. I think that aspect of my life is the one that's given me the most strength and given me an opportunity to be able to take on anything, to be honest. I had the privilege of being assigned male at birth. I had the privilege of being able to present myself to the world as a man, as a boy. Maybe a privilege, maybe not, because like that also came with other stuff like I was talking about. But I think that a lot of times that's what kind of saved me growing up in spaces of machismo and culture and tradition, because I don't know how else I would have survived, to be honest. I don't know how else I would have survived. Is I served in the military, in the army during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And a lot of the tools that I built growing up in Oceanside, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is a policy back in the days from Clinton that mentioned you really couldn't serve if you were queer or gay in the military. If military found out that you were queer or gay, you would get kicked out dishonorably, and you wouldn't get any benefits or anything like that. You didn't want to get kicked out. People didn't want to get kicked out. There's a lot of people who got kicked out during that time. I was in the army for 7 years, and 7 of those years I served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I only got to live the repeal of 1 month, but I was already gone. By then. But a lot of the tools that I used to survive out here in Oceanside, I think I utilized them in the army. In order to be able to survive. One of the things, there's different things, but one of the first things that I say is like, I know how to speak men, the language of men. A lot of times, the way they say something, the way they pronounce something, the way they say something, but they really mean something else. Just because I was really, like, that's how I was raised. I think I'm able to connect with a lot of brown men and men in general. I think because I had to learn how to do that growing up. Like even today, sometimes like I'm able to connect with men, like, and not like at a hey, what's up, man? Like, how you doing? Like, because I know how to project that because I needed to for so many years. So being able to do that, especially within the army, allowed me to be invited to different conversation spaces that mujeres, women, certain ethnicities might not be invited to, queer people definitely not be invited to. So I had access to a lot of this information in spaces. And I think that when I started to really step into who I was, that's when I started getting kicked out of these spaces. So when I started really saying who I am and who I was and how I am, I was no longer invited. Actually, I was kicked out of spaces, conversations, friendships, relationships, because a lot of times people are like, hey, like, that's not who you are. It's like, this is all I've always been. I used to feel bad. Este, I used to feel bad that I felt like my own culture, my own Mexican culture, really didn't like me.
Mm.
I think there was a lot of presentations of gay people in very dramatic, violent, comical ways that it never gave me an option to be like, is there something outside of that?
Mm.
I didn't even know I could imagine something else. I didn't know I could imagine myself. Like, I think my manifestation of who I am today is that little hope that I had of at that point of like, this is who I could be. I never knew I could be like this, like how I am today. I love me. It's the pero it was just I think it's the masculinity, or like, I don't know, masculinity. It's the I forgot the word, but the energy of like an unhealthy hombre has really has really hurt me.
Mm.
Like, really hurt me. Because for men, and I think for many years I felt like that, like I was hurt because I was never allowed to be myself. For many years I never lived my own identity. I never lived my own truth because I think I was really afraid, and there was no spaces for people to really allow me to be me. But it was painful. It was painful. And I think a lot of times people see me today and they're like, well, you're so strong. I'm like, yeah, but it took a lot. Oh, you're good. Gracias. Like, I know I'm strong, but I didn't wake up one day and became strong.
Mm.
I think that part of my life really damaged me. I feel like it was really damaging to me, because for many years I wasn't living my truth. I wasn't living who I was. I was living somebody else's truth. I was a gang member. I was undocumented. I was a church person. I was everybody else's truth but mine. And so I used to be resentful in my community, my Mexican culture community, of like, ¿por qué me trataron así? I think that's what it was. Like, why did you treat me like this growing up? Like, I was just a child. At least that's what I think.
Mm.
One of the things that I remember too that was really painful I remember when I was in second grade. I think that's when second or first grade. I think that's when I learned I had to like man it up, or I need to like locked in. I remember like there was this one. There was this jacket, and it had rainbows on it. And I loved that jacket. I don't know what it was, but I loved that jacket. It was like a white jacket and it had rainbows. And I used to love Rainbow Bright. Ooh, back in the days, Rainbow Bright.
Mm.
And I remember, I don't know who it was. I don't know who it was, but I know it was an adult, because I feel it. And it was an adult that I cared for and I loved. And that adult's like, esa chamarra es para niñas. So don't wear it. Like, so that jacket is for girls, so don't wear it. And I was like shocked. I was like, wait, like, I love this jacket. Like, how can you tell me that? And I never wore that jacket. And I never wore that jacket. And I never wore that jacket again. Pero, like, I don't know if you've seen my
Mm-hmm.
sarape. A lot of people don't know that, but the sarape is my inner child. That's how I heal. That's how I was like, nah, fuck you. A lot of people don't know that story. That's weird. Like, a lot of people don't know, but maybe because it's like that. Pero it's not a sarape, es un rebozo. And I don't know if people have seen it. El rebozo, y tiene todos los colores.
Yeah.
Like, it's intentional.
I'll put the picture here for the video.
That was that's my redemption, I guess you could say. My not redemption, my fuck you, bitch. Like, I'm still here, and I'm gonna wear this fucking shit out of it. Entonces, and that's what I'm saying. I think that's what I mean about, like, how I think it really hurt. A lot of the things that my comunidad did to me. That's how I felt, right? As a child. And that I still had to make sure that I was okay as growing up. So where am I with that, right? It's like what's kind of like a lot of people are like, well, then why the fuck do you even stay then? Like, if people are hurting you or you were hurt. Because I'm not that little person anymore. Like, my gente knew what they knew at that time. I'm not saying that's a fucking excuse, because it's not. But that's all the range that they had. And I think that it's also part of the colonial system for them to have been in place like that, you know? So I have empathy for my gente for hurting kids like me. You know, should I have done it? No. Did it have an impact? Fuck yeah. I'm a living proof of that impact. Like, seriously. But my community also, at the same time that they might have hurt me, I felt hurt by them, gave me so much too. Like, language, food, culture, dance, amor, community. So, like, I'm not only gonna focus, even though that's also important, because I don't want to dismiss myself. I only want to focus on the things that hurt, because they hurt. But I also know that my community has also given me so much. And I think in this moment of my life, that's where, like, you know what, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to be able, I have a different point where I can protect myself and be okay with myself. And another thing that I think that really helped me in my identity was talking to my ancestors, connecting with the elements, and just reading. I think one of the first readings that I remember seeing was how, like, two-spirited people within indigenous and spaces, a lot of times is that when somebody in the community, a baby in the community was orphaned, you know, because they didn't have parents, they would usually give it to the two-spirit person. And they would give it to this two-spirited person, because this two-spirited person was able to navigate different consciousness, two consciousnesses of the feminine and consciousness of the masculine, and in between, if they wanted to, right? But in having the baby, is that they were, if this baby was a boy, they were able to teach him how to be a boy, and if this baby was a girl, they were able to teach him how to be a girl. And if a baby was a two-spirited, they also had that ability. And I remember I was like, oh wow, that's so interesting. Like, I want to do that. Like, you know, I used to think that. I used to think, like, oh wow, like, that was divine. And I think that that's when I started, you know, looking more into the indigeneity of queerness. The queerness, indigeneity. And I think that's where I have gotten a lot of my power from, to be honest. And it comes from ancestral memory, and it comes from ancestral guidance, and it comes from indigenous practices, behaviors, values, and culture. Xochipilli was a deity. It's the prince of flowers, prince of music, and prince of everything beautiful. And Xochipilli was a queer indigenous deity. So people like me back in the days, we were respected, you know. And so I think that that's where I'm at now. Like, I really want to stand in that, you know. That's why I self-named Xochipilli. When colonization came over, when colonization started, you know, disappearing our gente. one of the strongest people in our community was two-spirited people, because a lot of two-spirited people had knowledge, history, strength, medicine keepers, healers. A lot of us were in that realm, and that was our source of power. And so when colonizers came and they wanted to impose the Bible on us, they had to get rid of the power, which we were powerful, so they killed us all off. Or they thought they killed us all off because we're still here. But they killed a lot of our ancestors, of two-spirited ancestors, because they didn't want us to even exist, because we were powerful. And I think that today a lot of people might realize that too. We are powerful, and I'm not saying that powerful in that of hierarchy, just powerful. Like, we have power. We're powerful to stand in at the table, create our own table, like come back and forth if we wanted to. And I think that is the. I really stand in that. I really want to stand on that. And I think that what I'm like, what I mean, like, as an organizer, because with being in the Human Rights Council of Oceanside and in my own journey, I think that has been a lot of times my source of power, my own identity. It's what says really kept me going, and because it's really tied to my ancestry, it's really tied to my gente, it's really tied to, the other day I was at an event and I was wearing some trenzas, and I was wearing my aretes, and there was this señora approached me. It was okay, because a lot of times señores represent, like a machismo thing. I was okay, but I also know, like, other of my siblings, when men approach them, it's scary. I remember how that used to be. But he approaches me and he's all like, "Are you a mushe?" And I don't know if people know what mushe is, but mushe is like a third gender in Oaxaca, because this man was from Oaxaca. And so mushe is third gender in Oaxaca, in a very particular part of Oaxaca. And I mean, it wasn't menacing. He was just like interested. And he's all like, "Oh, because," and then he was saying like, "Oh, nosotros conocemos a muchas y muchas," and he was like really excited about it, my presentation, I guess you could say. And that really touched me, and I think that I feel validated, I felt seen, I felt appreciated, because a lot of times within my own presentation and my own queerness, I think still to this day, a lot of people might not accept it or reject it. And it's really interesting, I think, for me to be able to talk about it, like the emotional aspect of it, but I also accept it, because that's really true for me. Like how, like, there's tears, yes, and I think that I'm not crying because it hurts. I'm crying, I think I cry because it's like almost like mourning myself, or mourning my childhood self. There's moments where hay momentos que todavía sigo sintiendo for my inner child, and for what they went through as a child. So that's what it is. It doesn't. I think, like, I mean, I don't. It doesn't hurt, because I know, like, I'm gonna be fine. Like, I've talked about. I don't know. I haven't talked about this, but I've talked about this in my mind many times, and I processed this in my mind many times. Vocalizing it, I think that's why it is. It's like I don't vocalize it as much, but also people don't ask me. But I know I'm gonna be okay, and also, like, know that I love the authenticity of what comes out when I speak about it too. I don't know. That's a little bit about my identity, I guess.
I wanted to ask too if you had to say anything to any youth, in particular any that may be going through similar experiences regarding identity, or even like the challenges of like many of the systems that be.
Mm-hmm.
here in Oceanside because they're very much prevalent right now. Like,
Yeah.
and validating that too. Like, a lot of your youth are facing a lot of challenges. So, what would you say?
I think that I go back to what I said about how I experience Oceanside versus how a new person today experiences Oceanside. I think a lot of times when I heard this question, like the elder generation talks about current times, like, oh, times have changed and they're more accepting, which could be fine or whatever. It's the but only the people who are living it. So if you're living through this situation where you might not feel accepted by everyone, is the I think that I would take it back to yourself, to oneself, and and continue to hopefully have faith in yourself, and to continue to believe in yourself, and continue to empower yourself, and to really talk to yourself and be like, this is who I am. The reason I say that because like well, I don't know, like I didn't grow up with somebody trying to tell me this, like, yeah. And I know, like, I mean, we're talking about something else, but it just like the things that I grew up with was like, if you were gay, you had HIV, AIDS. That was a really big thing back in the days, like late 90s, early 2000s. If you were gay, you're a very masculine trans person. You're the punchline. Everybody laughed at you because of your mannerism. Everybody laughed at you because of that. And from my experiences in the Mexican culture, if you were gay, you were a person who molested people or kids. So it's really hard for me to be with, like, what do I even tell somebody nowadays? Like, what do you do? Like, it was really hard for me to get out of that. And so I'm just thinking, like, what did I do to get out? I had to have patience. I had to, like, really look to myself. And maybe that's what it is. The tools that you're doing in this the tools that you're using in this moment might not be the tools that you're going to be using forever.
Mm.
And receive it, if you can, with appreciation. And you know what I mean by receiving it. I think a lot of youngsters might know that. Receive it with appreciation, if you can, and sharpen those tools, and thank those tools for keeping you alive, and for keeping you safe, and for keeping who you are, if that's what you're using the tools for. And there's like different spectrum for people who are very more, this message, I guess, is for more people who are like, within it's the households, the societies where a lot of us aren't accepted. And the reason I say that is because a lot of those tools really did help me survive. A lot of those tools really did help me thrive. I'm not here to try to tell anybody like you're gonna get out of it, because I don't know what's gonna happen. It's the bit more so is like, is you might not have any idea how powerful you are, and maybe that's what it is.
Could you speak a little bit about like your transition from the Army, right?
See.
The Army, and then if you could go towards like organizing here in Oceanside?
Yeah. I think they're actually tied together, right? Entonces, I was in Army from 2005 to 2012. For people who follow timelines, 2005 was when the United States was in war with Iraq. and then soon thereafter went to war with Afghanistan. And I think there was a lot of toxic masculinity in that space. Again, I think what protected me was being able to assimilate. So, I mean, assimilation was a tool that I used to be able to survive. Um, I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. So sometimes if other people do it, like I'm like, hey, like I can tell you're doing it, you know. But everybody's in their own journey. So use that. I never really liked it, to be honest. It was uncomfortable for me because the biggest part maybe because of myself, because of who I was as a person and my identity. I remember I had a partner and we were together for a year and then we broke up, and it was my first breakup ever. And I remember I just couldn't show it. I couldn't say it. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't experience it. Because in the back of my mind, I served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. If I brought that up, I would get kicked out. I didn't have any, and like at that point, like where do I go back to Oceanside? I don't have an apartment. I don't have anywhere to stay. I don't have money. So it was scary. I had to like just swallow it. And it took me many years like to really be able to process that. I felt uncomfortable because of the conversations I had with men. It was disgusting, I guess. This toxic masculinity aspect of it, locker room talk, como le dicen. I just never felt comfortable with that. Like, you know, like hearing these stories or seeing these videos or these, it was just, I don't know, so uncomfortable for me. Hearing the stories about sexual abuse towards mujeres, especially women, you know, like, and a lot of times, like, the women weren't believed. And the way that women were believed to be, like, they were just like some piece of meat. It was just really disgusting for me, I guess. It was really uncomfortable. And again, I had to sharpen my tools to be able to survive. Assimilation, projection, staying quiet, and agreeing a lot of times. So that was my time during the army. Getting out was difficult because I think I didn't realize how much I had assimilated. And coming out, I was like, oh shit, I don't know what to do in my life, because there was many moments where I knew exactly what to do, when to do, and so forth, right? I didn't know what freedom for me, or liberation, more than freedom, I didn't know what liberation was. I didn't recognize it, so I had to really figure it out, and it was really hard when I met liberation. And so transitioning out, I got out in 2012, and then 4 years later in 2016, late 2016, 4 years later, that's when I joined HRCO. It's been 10 years. 10 years, it'll be 10 years December. Because I remember I was taking a class at Maricosta College. HRCO came and spoke with the class, and I'm all like, it just kind of like popped in my mind. I'm like, I want to do what they're doing, because I think at that time they were doing like what Alianza Comunitaria is doing with telling checkpoints, yeah. And I was like, I can do that. Like, I don't know, like it was always like in the back of my mind to support people. I think that's always been like just like a natural thing for me, to be able to support people and be able to stand with them and be able to support them. And I'm like, this is what I like to do. I don't know what was organizing, to be honest. I just wanted to, at that time, what I understood it to be, help. But now I use the word support, and we can get into that.
You were talking about joining HRCO?
Yeah, 2016. And so it was Misael, Karen, and Lily. I think that those are the first people that I saw. And and I think I feel like I hit the ground running when I went with HRCO, I remember within the first year we did letter writing campaigns for the school district. I forgot for what. We did some protests and demonstrations in Vista to support a young brown hombre who got murdered by the department, the sheriffs. And then we were just doing stuff around here in Oceanside. So I think that, yeah, the first year I was like, oh wow, like it was a lot. But como dicen, I was green. Estaba bien verde. In organized mentality. My organizing, to be honest, like I think like it was a subtle organizing aspect of me, all of my life. But I think that it was like really opened up when I joined HRCO. But even then, like I was still like very green. And I think one of the first things that I remember was because I remember Karen, so she was a HRCO founding member. She was shared the HRCO Facebook page with me, and she's like, hey, can you, like, I see you post a lot and people follow your stuff, like, can I give you access and you start posting stuff? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, and I had ideas. And I remember, again, like I was just learning. I remember I found this video of like a sheriff like playing an accordion, and he was playing like Mexican music. And I posted it on HRCO page. At that time, I'm like, well, you know what? Like, let's get engagement so people can, our Mexican raza can come. I'm like, there's nothing wrong. And I remember the video got taken down, and then Gotten messages me. It's like, hey, like this is the stuff that we don't post on HRCO. I know now why. Back then, I probably didn't know why, but there was like a lot of those things of like that I had to learn. I had to like really decolonize and deconstruct a lot what was presented to me. And I think, to be honest, I was excited to do that because there was a lot of within my own identity. I think that that's where I started, like decolonizing, deconstructing my own identity and what was presented to me to be able to discover myself. And so I think I was excited to be like, yeah, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to see where this goes. I don't know where this is going, So that's how I started with an HRCO. We have done many different things. City council meetings, Oceanside Unified School District board meetings, campaigns for Center Street, campaigns for Pablo Tac, talking to community, doing know your rights stuff, doing rapid response, doing patrols. A lot of the stuff that we're doing today, like that's very visible, is like stuff that we have been doing before within HRCO. And so when this new president came in, which is the same thing for any president, any political party, when this new president came in, I feel that a lot of us HRCO members were ready, and because we have been doing the work. And so like seeing people come in and are like, I don't know what to do, what do you think we can do, like it was like really fast. Like to try to get people to support the community right away. And I think that, again, like, the basis of my formation has really been my identity, but I think that being able to use that within HRCO and organizing spaces has been this, me being able to say what I need to say to whoever I need to say it, and in whichever way I want to deliver it. And I think that's been very powerful to me because growing up in Oceanside, like I mentioned before, is hiding from the police, from the Oceanside Police Department and my own self. I knew how to hide. I knew like invisibility. I knew how to be invisible. Whereas now I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to be invisible anymore. I'm here and you're going to hear me and I'm going to say it.
Could you like talk about what you've seen like through the lens of organizing through HRCO, like with like the systems that be like the district, the school district, the council, like understanding the systems, right? Like what you're seeing like right now or have seen in the past.
I think that HRCO is in a very is a unique in a unique spot within Oceanside. Is the we are a lot of us in HRCO understand what it is to grow up in Oceanside with some privileges of either language, education, or navigating systems. We also understand that our parents are probably, migrated into this space. And then we also understand mainstream society. One of the things that I usually say is that HRCO members are the fruits of the seeds that were planted by the people that came here. And so, we being that fruit, a lot of times we are not liked by everyone. And sometimes people don't even want us to grow here. They don't. Like, that's like very visible and understandable. So HRCO is in that spot of like utilizing the tools and gaining tools to bring it back to our community, empower our community, and almost a bridge, a vessel, connecting that information of policy, that information of processes in the city council, processes in the district, processes in talking to somebody, that vessel of bringing back, of learning know your rights information and then sharing it back with our community. And the reason we're able to is because, again, like, we were part of growing up in the system and learning English and, going through the school system and understanding their laws, the laws that are here, and like, hey, this is what this says. HRCO is also, a lot of us have vicariously experienced these impacts, and some of us have directly felt the impacts of these policies and institutions, and so I used to think that HRCO was a support, an additional support to community, but now I think that HRCO is part of that. We're part of the fight too. Is that we stand alongside our gente. At least that's how I feel like, and with the tools that we have gained, and we have to strengthen our gente. We are the pueblo who has, quote unquote, left and came back to be like, hey, I brought this, let's fight. Hey, I brought this, yo tengo esto, yo tengo lo otro. Like, let's continue to build, let's continue to fight, let's continue to do that. So that's why I see HRCO to be today. Yeah, I think that's who we are right now in this moment.
What do you hope to see in the future?
I think in the future is unity, more consciousness. I hope to see liberation, definitely liberation for our gente. I hope that people who are in similar spots as me, like growing up in Oceanside with parents who migrated, and even not those people, but I mean everybody, that you're able to see that you do have power and that you're able to do something, and that collective power is powerful. And there's so many of us here in Oceanside that I know that we can do it. I know we can do it. I used to tell my kids is that somebody has to believe, and I believe it. One of the things that, it's coming up with with everything that's going on with immigration and family separation is like the institutional tactics that are being resourced to attack our gente is through isolation. I think I've talked to you about this. And isolation is a tool that's often used by manipulators and people who want to hurt people, you know. And so in isolation is separating everybody from separating one person from the rest so that you have more power over them, ways to be able to manipulate them, hurt them, and so forth. And so the way to fight isolation is unity. And I hope that a lot of us are able to unite with care and love at the forefront, especially for those people who are mostly impacted.
I was gonna say like an example, because I know there's gonna like be a lot of people watching. I hope a lot of people watch. Because like I know as of recently, there's like the big thing. Of course, is like the view of the ocean, like the condos being created downtown. Even then, like I spoke to you about this, how the Regal, how there was no Regal before when you
Yeah.
were growing up, but how they're removing the Regal now, and to like kind of like go off of like the isolation part, we're seeing a lot of our gente getting displaced, right?
Yeah.
The very fabric of community, but also spaces that are supposed to be communal, right? I understand Regal wasn't a thing back then, but
No.
Regal now for a lot of like the newer generation or newer folks here is like very communal, like being able to like hang out in that area in front of Regal, like it's like in a pueblo, like
Yeah.
a centro.
La
Yeah.
plaza.
Yeah, so I feel like we see that very upfront, and even like with the swami too, like removing
yeah.
the swami. That's another one. That's another people. So, um, how would you say? How would you say a person can like get involved in their community, right? In regards to Oceanside, like how could they get involved with HRCO or tap in to the network, or maybe like there's, I'll say, people that are coming from different places, right, that really want to understand Oceanside, like who should they tap in, like what networks?
I think it's the tapping into the elders of the community, the señoras of the community, and the most impacted of the community. I would start with the señoras, and with the señoras is very intentional, like the older Mexican, quote unquote, Latine ladies, you know. Usually the mujeres are the ones who hold a lot of this knowledge and information. I think that they would be able to provide guidance on anybody who wants to know how to do that. The elders hold knowledge too. The people who have been here for a while and who is being impacted too. You know, I think that a lot of times they're the ones who know. A lot of times, these people are the ones who know who's protecting them too. Entonces, I would look for that. Look for that, and ask for guidance, ask for permission. I would say that's one thing. Tapping into the elements, I think it's also important. We have the element of the ocean, the element of water. We have the element of, I mean, a lot of people have different elements, right? But very particular here in Oceanside, the element of air and breeze. And we also have land. And I think that's also important to recognize. How are we in relationship with the land? And how are we making sure that we are respecting it and loving it and building that relationship with land and the elements. There's been a lot of different things that have happened in Oceanside. There's El Muelle se quemó. There was a crash. A truck crashed into a Starbucks. There's been recent fires. A lot of people see this as natural stuff that happens, but I think that the land is alive, and this is how the land is also responding to everything that's been happening to the people of this land in Oceanside. The violence, that it's experiencing. It's hurting, and if we can't see that relationship to how the land is responding, to our relationship of how we take care of the land, that might be a place to look at too as well. The señoras, for me, I know have always known how to take care of the land, and I think there's a really special relationship between señoras and the land. The plantas is the watering, the way they take care of stuff, of not wanting to add more basura or to the world, or recycling this or recycling that. And that's why I say like the señoras are the ones who hold a lot of this knowledge of how they could be connected. They're the ones who are gonna know who takes care of people here in this, alongside with queer people, undocumented people here in Oceanside, black people and people of color as well. They're the ones who are gonna know who to get connected with. And I think anywhere you go, that's always going to be a reality. I'm not saying it's the reality. It's going to be a reality. Checking in with the elements and the people.
Just like one last question. Well, not question. Just something that I want you to cap off with. If there is anything you want to share, and what Oceanside means to you.
Oceanside is home. Oceanside has many different components that have always held me. And not only me, it has held my gente. And it continues to hold my gente. Oceanside's alive. It's the land, it's the people, and I see Oceanside in the struggle. I see Oceanside continuing to advocate and wanting our gente to stay here, everybody to stay here. I see Oceanside providing for us, and I see when Oceanside fights back, when policies by the city of Oceanside try to displace us intentionally with gentrifiers. Oceanside is where my family lives at. It's where my friends are at. Oceanside is where I learned about myself. It provided that environment for me to learn about myself. Oceanside has given and taken from me, and I appreciate that. I think I need to appreciate that. Oceanside gave me my brother, and Oceanside took my brother, and I don't say like took in a bad way, but this is where I built that relationship with him. This is where I built a relationship with my kids, my foster kids. Oceanside has given me so many things that I never thought I could have, and it continues to do so. But I also think that we need to believe in Oceanside.
Thank you. Could you say your name one last time, and pronouns, and one last thing? I'll give you
the floor. Oh my God.
Proceed.
Juanito, xochipilli, conoro, pronouns they, them, theirs. Last thing to say. I don't know. It's the...
And it won't be the last. I'll probably interview you again.
Well, I guess then we can,
Part two.
Yeah, part two. But I don't know. Like, I think that maybe just I appreciate this moment. I appreciate this space and energy. I think I'm thankful for. I want to be thankful, and I want to be intentional for this moment. I think because a lot of times I think this is a beautiful moment, to be honest. Like this different components, right? The space, you, the camera, talking in this manner and being very raw. of how beautiful it is, and I really want to stop and just kind of like feel it, you know. And hopefully people are also able to know
Mm-hmm.
that if you're able to create it once, you can recreate it again and again and again. And even if you feel it once, like I guess even if you feel it once, you can do it again. So maybe that's what it is. You okay?
Yeah, no, that was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. Like I really just want to uplift like stories, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like I feel like a lot of like the content that gets pushed out there, even like from like brown people,
Mm.
like it's super like, you know, just like patriarchal too,
Oh
in a
yeah.
way. Like,
Patriarchy, that's what it that's what I
yeah,
was not masculinity. Masculinity I think like has been distorted, but patriarchy has is what has hurt me.
yeah, yeah. The systems that we,
Yeah.
and just like, cause our stories are so powerful. Like we, like that's why like colonizers tried burning down our history, tried to erase it, but like
Now we're here.
no, like we're here, and like I want to make sure that like who knows that I hope that our gente stays here, but um, just to put it out there that we're here, we're a part of the land, and our experiences, our pain, our love will always be here,
Yeah.
and
And
will
that's
always be
beautiful.
carried by
Yeah.
our Covicham land.
Exactly. And that's beautiful. And like I said, it's like that's the rawness of it. That's the authenticity of each one of us. And I think for me, ultimately, that's liberation. And that's the goal for everybody. To be free. What I feel in being liberated, I want everybody to feel. Like how beautiful it is to. And I continue to practice liberation, right? Within my own self. But like, I hope everybody can experience liberation and feel how that beautiful that is. That you don't have to be constrained to the ideas, the concepts, to everything that was presented to us that usually is tied back to white supremacy or colonial values. So liberation is beautiful, and it's there as an offering if you want it.
Mm, that part.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can cap it off there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you.